What's going on, everyone? Happy Thursday. October follows upon us. The summertime is coming to a close. Depending on where you live, you might not have any trees or any leaves on your trees. I know that the fall, actually, I like fall myself. I think it's one of a great time of year. I also, let me know, by the way, in the comments if I feel a little I'm laggy right now on my end. I did restart my computer beforehand, but hopefully it's good to go. Hopefully there's no issues there because, well, it's too late, can't fix it. um so anyways, fall, I love the colors of fall. It really brings out a really good look. I like the trees when they turn orange and they lose their leaves. Obviously, some areas don't lose your leaves, so depending on where you're at, where I am, we do. We get snow, although I could probably do without the snow. If I lost leaves for like maybe a week or two and then they came back green again, started growing and spring was here, I would be all over that. I think that would be like a perfect time of year for it. But I digress. The part about I like about fall and in dealing with home service businesses and predominantly heating and cooling companies is there's a shoulder season. And it's the transitionary time. Now, some other industries don't quite have as big of a shoulder season, or those that do a lot of maintenance agreements say, what shoulder season? I'm busy all year round. Great, you've got a very successful business, but not everybody has that luxury. But one of the other things that I like about the fall is that it's a time to look back over what has happened over the last year and start planning for next year. When you can start planning for next year, you can put the seeds in now, and it's not just this one and done exercise where I'm going to spend 30 minutes and review my year and plan next year. No, it's going to take a lot longer than just that amount of time. So my goal here for today is to help you guys plan your 2026, at least give you a lot of information, a couple templates, a couple marketing budget spreadsheets to be able to help you plan and maximize what's going to be a great year for you in 2026. One thing that I always like to caution, I guess I shouldn't say always, kind of depending on the year. One thing I've been talking about a little bit this year is consumer sentiment. And how do you win in 2026 when consumer sentiment is down? Coupled with the fact, by the way, when you look at AHRI data, and Matt Michelle did a phenomenal job at pulling all this information, is that this year and maybe even next year is going to actually be the dip of an install cycle. It's going to start ramping up. And so 15-year cycles, we're just compounded right now with consumer sentiment. And what you do from a marketing perspective is going to matter even more. The companies that plan and execute a marketing strategy and looking at, not just the tactics, but okay, what's my actual strategy? When am I going to spend? Where am I going to spend? What am I going to spend it on? And how often am I going to review it? Those are the companies that are going to win in 2026. So without further ado, let's jump in. I want to be respectful of your guys' time. I am going to go ahead and do this guy. There we go. Beyond Digital, Building Your Marketing Framework, presented by On Purpose Media. Of course, I'm Thaddeus, your host. I'll talk a little bit about me in a second and who I am. So let's jump in. So quick agenda overview here for y'all. We're going to talk about, do you have a goal for 2026? Okay. We're going to goal breakdowns, and we're going to break this down. I like the reverse revenue method, and I'll show you how we get that in the spreadsheet that we're going to have for it. And we're going to work through the worksheet calculations. I will get you a copy. You can kind of see it already on the top of my screen right up here. We're going to work through this Excel sheet. You guys get a copy of that file, save as, and you can make a copy and do whatever you want with it. So it's my gift to you to hopefully you win. I'm actually not going to talk about trends to pay attention to. I thought I deleted that from my sheet. But maybe if you have some time at the end, I'll talk a little bit about some trends. Okay. Ground rules for today. I always like to set some of these in stone for you because it is important for you to have some of those ground rules and that aspect of things. So let's dive into some of those. You want to be present during this. This is a workshop. Okay, we're going to work through some of these things. We'll send out a replay of this after too, by the way, in case you want to go back and look at some of the things that we discussed and went over and we talked about. Okay, if you do the work, your business will grow. Okay, that's straight up. I already know that when you put in the work, when you put in the plan, all you got to do is follow the plan. You're going to have the success that you want. Okay, and that's it. Okay, biggest part, be present. This is a workshop. Okay. So who am I? In case you're new and you don't follow me, or you came in and you're like, hey, what's this guy talking about? Well, I built On Purpose Media specifically for HVAC, plumbing, and electrical contractors. We do work with other companies as well, roofers, garage doors as well, but HVAC, plumbing, electrical are our big three that we focus on, a lot of HVAC, a lot of plumbing. So one of the things that I discovered was a gap, right? Contractors hated their marketing agencies because they didn't understand the business. They didn't talk the lingo. They didn't know what a tech turnover was, and they always had to explain everything. And so when we niche down into the space, I mean, I worked with small businesses. I've been in marketing for 12 years. I worked with small businesses for 5 to 6 before that, just 5 to 6 years in my local area, doing print media, and then we transitioned into the digital world in actually about 6 years ago, right around that mark. So again, big gap, right? You don't really know what your marketing agency is doing, and it's still that way. You talk to 10 businesses, you're probably going to get 5 or 6 that don't really know what their marketing company does. You're going to get 2 to 3 that are be like, well, they're okay, but I never talked to them. And you get 1 to 2, they're like, yeah, absolutely amazing. They're crushing it. And if you're following along with math, hopefully I math that right. So, but anyways, we are a 7-figure agency, 7-figure business, by the way. So I am a business owner too. I do budgeting too. I plan things too. I run an organization too. I've got 13 team members that are part of my organization. So I get it, just like you, right? I'm no different. Just the fact I run a marketing agency and you run a home service business, right? The other part is I believe in transparency, huge advocate for transparency and doing what's right now. It's easy. And that's actually our first core value inside of our organization is when we mess up, we own it and we fix it, right? We're humans. Every single human makes a mistake. And if you don't recognize and realize that, no, maybe you're a narcissist. But anyways, I'm a steward for a great culture. I want to make sure that our team and our people are succeeding within inside of the organization. I've got over a decade in marketing, which you already heard me say. So question for you though, and you can either answer this in the comments or you can just say it out loud as you're watching me, or you can just not answer it. But what is the hardest part about marketing your home service business? What is the hardest part about marketing your home service business? Well, there's lots of things really, but when you think about it, there's everything, right? You look at this 6-slide cycle. I mean, like, okay, well, there's the foundation. It's got a brand identity and when you have a brand identity, branded assets, optimized website, Google business profile, you got paid acquisition channels, Google, Bing, Yelp, HomeAdvisor, Angie, Meta, retargeting, other lead aggregation sources. You need to be found with local SEO, citation building, authority and content creation, visibility and awareness. You need to do radio, billboards, print, direct mail, TV, streaming. You've also got to work on building trust via reviews, customer satisfaction, referrals, having a great company culture. And you also got to do retention and local roots with email and text marketing to your clients. You got to do community events. You got to do local partnerships. There is so much on there, right? That is the toughest part about marketing any business, is that there's this flywheel and you're like, well, shit, I don't really know what to do. I don't really understand this. I am a technician turned business owner. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, if you're a technician turned business owner, but chances are you haven't learned all of this, and that's okay. And some businesses, by the way, have totally understood this, or they say, hey, you know what? I know that I'm not great at this one particular thing. I'm going to find it and I'm going to outsource it. Okay, that's the other part. So you don't have to do this alone. It's funny. I tell my young boys, and I've got 2 kids under the age of 5, and I tell my oldest all the time. He gets frustrated really easy. He says, "I can't, and he gets all mad. I'm like, no. It's not that you can't. It's just that you're having troubles right now. And if you're having trouble, what can you do? You can ask somebody for help. Tell him that all the time. He doesn't really quite listen. I mean, he's under 5. But actually, I got that from Matthew McConaughey. And in his book, Green Lights, by the way, great book. I would listen to it because his voice. Whew. All right. Anyways, that's the flywheel. That's one of the toughest parts when I look back at this. Was the hardest part about marketing your home service business is that. Okay. Now that you've understood, okay, this tough part, the big question that I have to ask you guys is, why are you doing what you're doing? And why are you doing it? What's your bigger why? Is there a purpose behind running your business other than just a paycheck? And there should be a bigger purpose. Tell you On Purpose Medias. And we have our big, hairy, audacious goal, and it's set for, we'll be redoing it here shortly when we sit down and do our annual planning session as well. And this marketing planning session is part of what we talk about as our organization, but we plan and map out our entire year through our marketing planning session. But when you look at why are you doing what you're doing, you have to have this. You have to have a definitive purpose. On Purpose Media, when we hit our big, hairy, audacious goal, it's going to be feeding directly and indirectly 4,000 households. Okay, that's our purpose. You think about how many clients we serve and how many average people work at the amount of clients that we're going to serve times 2.3 households. 2.3 people per household, right? It's a weird number. It's just how it is. But like 4,000 mouths that get fed directly and indirectly by the work that we do. That's our purpose. But do you guys have a bigger why on that? Does that motivate you? Does that drive you? Does that fill your cup? Does that get you out of bed to continue growing and working in your business? That is, if you want to continue to grow your business. You don't have to, right? You could be $3 million and you just want to maintain $3 million every single year because you got a great lifestyle. Cool. You could be a truck in a truck. Truck in a truck, I always like that. You could be a solopreneur. There's a better way for it. You can be a solopreneur working by yourself, for yourself, and have a great lifestyle. And if that's you and then you like that, great. Not everybody has to be the big business, but you have to have a why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Some people might want to be a solopreneur so they can earn some money and then they can spend the rest of the time fishing without any headaches of running a staff of 12 to 13 people, 14 people, because, well, you know what? Staff create headaches. Is what it is. Anyways, I digress. So before we dive in, I already talked about this. Why are you doing what you're doing? But your team also needs a culture. Okay? Your team needs a culture. I was on a call earlier today. I'm going to be speaking at an event in April on culture. And we were just talking about the idea behind hiring and recruiting and retention. Well, if you have great core values and your great culture, well, you can retain top talent. And then the other part, they buy into what you're doing. They buy into this idea that you are on a greater mission. You're serving a greater purpose. And when they buy into that mission, that's part of your culture. By the way, I ran another workshop a month ago on purposemedia.com/culture that redirects to a YouTube link. You can go ahead and find that also when you're on that channel. Hit that like, subscribe, share button for it. But anyways, go back and listen to that because it was fascinating. It's a good workshop to make sure that your culture is on point. So anyways, let's get your workbook. Head on over to onpurposemedia.ca. We're not going to get the questions. /2026, actually onpurposemedia.com is the actual URL on that. So let me just fix that. onpurposemedia.com /2026. We're going to play right there. We're going to start this guy. My apologies for that. But of course, if you want to head over to this onpurposemedia.com /2026, that will redirect you to your workbook. Okay, onpurposemedia.com /2026 will redirect you to your workbook. By the way, if you want to just look at my YouTube channel, because I got it here, youtube.com /Thaddeus Tandu. That is the YouTube channel. So let's dive in. Okay, let's roll through this. Now, I'm going to set some ground rules on this. Okay, pay attention to what we're talking about today, and then go back and re-listen and go through this as a great exercise. Okay, I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger so you can kind of see it a little bit easier on the screen. There we go. All right. So there are a few tabs on the bottom. Don't get all gunshot. Don't get all, wanting to go in advance on this. Okay, let's just take your time. Okay, follow along with me. I'm going to walk you through the sheet and then how you can utilize it for yourself. All right. So revenue and booked jobs targets. We got a yearly, we got a monthly, we got monthly percentages, we got budget allocation, and a ROAS calculation. So I did it on tabs just to kind of separate it all for you. So the big thing that you want to do is you want to look at last year's existing customer revenue and last year's new customer revenue. Okay, I want you to separate the two. And if your CRM system is not set up to be able to do this, you need to do this starting today to be able to separate your new versus existing, or your FSM, your House Call Pro, whatever. You want to make sure that you can separate this out. Okay, this sheet is formula driven, by the way, on what this ratio is. I would even be curious to know if you went backwards to 2023, 2022, we've got 2024 here. If you went to 2023, 2022, what were your actual existing versus new customer revenue? And find that number, because that percentage is going to give you an idea of, okay, well, I know that on average, this amount comes from existing customers. You also want to market to your existing customers. We'll talk about that later. But now you can say, in order to hit my goal in this example, this company did, and this is fictitious numbers, I rounded to make it easy, wants to do 4.5 million this year. Okay, that's their goal. Okay, well, we know that based off of this number, I'm going to play a hypothetical that they've hit this ratio since they started. Okay. Every year that number stays roughly the same, which is like a third, right, of their business comes from existing customers. The other 2/3 come from new. Your business could be completely different, by the way, and you want to make sure that you understand that and work through that. So 4.5 million is their revenue target, as you can see here. Okay. This means that they need existing customer revenue of 1.5 million. They need a new customer revenue of 3 million. They need a monthly new business, because we're going to focus on new business here for online and offline. Okay. That means a projected growth rate of 50%. Okay. That's what this data and these numbers tell us. And so you plug in, by the way, the instructions here. Anything pink has a formula, don't touch it. You can mess your stuff up. If you touch something by accident, Control Z that, okay, when you do that. And by the way, you're going to want to go File, make a copy right here. I've allowed you to be able to make a copy of this for your own use. Okay. This is your sheet. If you're a marketing company and you're watching this, feel free to steal this too, because if we can educate more business owners on this, we're going to have better, more successful businesses when it comes to budgeting. By the way, I've ran this business since February 2020 is like when we officially kicked off and took our first client. We started building things in a fall of 2019. 2024 rather was the first year that we actually had a budget in our business. It was like, yeah, let's grow. And we're like, oh shit, well, we should probably actually have a budget. So don't do what I did. You can start this from day one. All right. Couple things that I want to highlight, and this is important for you to understand this, because your numbers are going to define how much you need to spend on business or on marketing, okay, for your new business. So I am going to show you a couple things right here. Average cost per lead. This is highly subjective to area and where you're at. Obviously, places like, I don't know, Searcy, Arkansas, for example. Hi, Jason, Julian, Robert Nolan. Your cost per lead is going to be lower. If you're in Dallas, Fort Worth, your cost per lead is going to be higher. Okay. We can see anywhere from $50 to $150 to $175 to $200 cost per lead across all new channels of marketing, right? Obviously, referrals are going to be a lot lower than that. But we're looking at this. I'm going to keep this number at 100. I could use 115. I could use 75. I prefer to use 100. I'd rather have a little bit higher of a number than a little bit lower of a number. Okay. So you can do some research, use ChatGPT if you want to be able to find out what your area's average cost per lead is across all sources if you need. This is some data that we found from ours. Okay. What is your average conversion rate from caller lead to book job? The industry average is 45%, by the way. 40 to 45% is generally what people are batting around. I know some companies that are 70 to 80% booking rate when somebody calls in, because they have CSRs and answer that are trained and they're really good at booking. Okay. So you're going to want to enter in your booking, your conversion rate there. If you don't know that, it's a great exercise to go back and find that for an entire year, by the way. Okay. You can break it down by month. I'll get to that later. Cancellation rate of book calls, I'm just going to leave that at 2%. You can be 5%, you can be 1%, you can be 0%, but I'm just going to put it at 2% because we know that some people cancel. They change their mind. Okay? Tech turnover rate on service opportunities. These are service calls that your team goes out to. Tech turnover rate, I hear anywhere from 1 to 4. So 10 to 40%. Some people are even like 0%. I'm going to put this number at 20% for this example, because I'm going to come back and I'm going to edit these numbers. I'm going to show you what this difference means. Okay. By the way, you can see this monthly budget that we're required to hit goals. Okay. This is where I'm going to come back to. Okay. Pay attention to that. $36,848 of $250,000 based off of these average numbers. Okay. People are like, well, this isn't the average for my area. Guys, I'm talking to everybody in North America here, right? I have to take some averages through this. Okay. So tech turnover rate, 20%. Sales team closing rate on the tech leads, I've heard anywhere from 20 to 90%. Most oftentimes I hear around 60%. From people that are a sales team closing on tech teams. It could be either you're doing a selling tech model, maybe a little bit higher, or if you're pushing those over to a comfort advisor, right? Just knowing what your numbers are on, if you're to run 10 service calls, how many of those are you turning over to an install quote, whether it's a selling tech model or a comfort advisor model. Okay. Average sale on those tech leads that come over, 10,000 is what I put in here. Again, some people are going to be like, my area. Do your numbers, guys. This is for you. Okay. Average sale on service calls, $400. Okay. Now you can see some of the other math that shows out. Total sales, 254,800, which is pretty bang on to our 250,000 that we had from above. Here's where it gets interesting. Okay. let's just say you could be, I don't know, 10% better. So this jumps up to 50%. Okay. This, we'll just leave this as, 2%, or even 1.5%. Okay. Let's go 1.5. Okay. You can do a little bit better on your 20 on those. So instead, you're going to get a 22% because we're getting 10%, right? We're going to go 66%. We're going to go 11,000. We're going to go 440. 10% better. Okay. So where did I mess up? Total sales 440, 11,000. There's an error in this formula. 1,000. That's B30. B31. Yeah, that's something's messed up on this. See, even I mess up the formulas every now and again. See, I just went Control Z and I just backed it off, and so that makes more sense. So obviously, I hit something somewhere on that. Okay, my bad. So 263,000 is what those total sales are. But you see how this dropped down 26,000, right? Marketing spend needed, and because it's based off of this formula, if you're just 10% better, you can now reduce that by $12,000 of a marketing spend, and you've actually added that in sales. Fascinating stuff, hey? Based off of your numbers. By the way, this blended average ticket calculates that as well. You're going to see that number. So now let's get some crazy stuff. Okay, I know people doing 70%, 1%. Their tech turnover is about 30%. They're closing 70% of their leads. Their average ticket is 15,000. Their average service ticket is 500. Okay, 277,000. That's not that much bigger of a number, right? You went from 260, so we went from 252 to 263 to 277. Okay, well, look at this. Now you're down to $11,000 in terms of a monthly budget required to hit your target. 11,000. You see the difference here. So this is why I hate blanket statements that go blanket statements that are like, well, 10%, 10%, 10%. No, because guess what? If I were to go to this monthly percentages or budget allocation, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Based off of your numbers, that's a 3% budget. Yeah, you can do a lot more than that, okay, based off of numbers. So keep that in mind. I'm going to reset these back to the average numbers because I always want to make sure that we have that crystal clear. Now that that example is out of the way, okay, we've reset that now to 254, and you got 36,000 back up here. Okay, cost per lead, obviously, if this jumps, well, yeah, okay, right? So your operations matter significantly in your marketing. So monthly plan, what does this look like? Okay, you've got the yearly numbers, you've got the monthly plan. So this is where I said, hey, why don't you go through and look at this per month? Because you can actually forecast this in, because we know there's busy times of year and there's slow times of year. So in this particular example, we've got February, we've got January, February, and March are kind of their slower years. Oops. February and March are their slower months rather, and then it ramps up. And then, June, July, August, bigger ones, then it starts to go down. But you can see those numbers. We're at 3 million, kind of a little off on that revenue targets here. So you can actually, these are all formula driven too, based off of previous year's numbers and your data, because generally that's the same. The other part that you can also really get granular on, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this particular sheet, but you can actually go through, and your average cost per lead, it could fluctuate on a month by month basis. So I've given you the tools to be able to look through to say, okay, well, maybe my cost per lead is going to fluctuate a little bit on a month by month basis. Now you're in January, February, it's actually a little bit different. You're $100 cost per lead, or whatever the numbers look like, right? You could be a little bit higher in summer because there's more competition, a little bit lower in the winter times or the shoulder seasons because there's less competition. So you can actually play with this to see what the differences are based off of time of year if you've got the data. Okay. Another part, average conversion rate from lead to book job. Okay. Yeah, you see the note there. But you you can see sometimes in time of year, you might have higher booking rates versus lower booking rates. So now you can actually play with this to adjust this based off of time of month. Same with your cancellation rate, same with your tech turnover rate, same with your sales team closing rate, same with your average sale on leads, and same with your average sale on service calls. You can play with this on a month by month basis to say, okay, I know that in my particular business, I know that June, July, and August, I have a little bit higher cancellation rate. I got a higher booking rate. I've got higher tickets. I've got higher turnovers, everything. We'll factor those in, right? If it comes out in the wash that it is an average, well, now you can look at that, right? But here's the other part is it also tells you what your average monthly budget is required to hit the goals. Okay? Breaks that down. So you can see, 20, I've got a div. I'll fix this later. It's average. It should be, wait. Right, because there was an error in that. So sometimes when you change things in this sheet, it does create div zeros. So I'll go through and I will fix those in a smidge. I'll fix those after. Okay. So sometimes the sheet messes up. But now you can see that the marketing budget changes on a month by month basis. Okay. Monthly percentages, this is generally pretty much done for you in this sheet. And so I always like to look at this to say, okay, well, last year's number, here's what you generated, total revenue. Okay, I'm not breaking this down between new and repeat and new at this point in time. I just wanted to see because I actually want to budget this based off of time of year. Okay, so if I'm looking at this and I say, okay, time of year, we're going to be over here based on percentages of revenue earned. So you can see October, November, February, March, a little bit lower, 5.83% of the year came from that. Your biggest months, July and August, 11.67 came from that. Again, these will be your numbers. This will change for you. And then it projects it historically based off of what your last year's data was. And again, this isn't perfect. There's no perfect way to be able to do this because, again, you can't necessarily predict what's going to happen in 2026. But you can see total revenue, repeat revenue, new revenue gives you an idea and a ballpark of what you're after. Okay. Number of calls run. This is one that you're going to have to manually do in putting this in here. I like to see, okay, well, is it fairly close? Does it tie to revenue? Okay, so you can manually put how many jobs you ran. I just made these numbers up there. And so kind of do what you need. This probably doesn't even match the example. I don't even think I changed this from the last year I ran this, the same flow. So, and then you can see the number of calls that you need, repeat jobs, new jobs, if you wanted to get super granular on that. So that's the monthly percentages. But let's get into the budget allocation because this is where the fun stuff happens. Okay. All of this information is based off of the yearly plan sheet on kind of what we have. But this entire sheet right here is based off of your numbers. So I showed you that example earlier, 10% versus 9.8 or 3%, right? Based off of what you change in here. Okay. So if I'm going to go 60%, we're going to go 1% right there. Change that, 15,000. And 500, let's say. Okay. Now I'm going to go back to this budget allocation. You see why the percentage argument doesn't really make sense? Because those numbers dictate an ability to have a smaller budget. Okay. So if I were to base everything off of this, but your numbers are here, you're going to shoot the moon and you're going to have staffing problems, which you may just want to just shoot the moon and just send it all day long. Cool. Run it. The based on your numbers is here. Okay. So I'm just going to reset all of this there. I'm going to go back to the budget allocation because I want to make sure because my examples were all set off of that. So again, I wanted to highlight that difference for you. So when you look through this monthly budget based on your numbers, okay, this is what we're looking at this through based on your numbers. Okay, so what we're looking at through. Okay, allocated to online, allocated to offline, allocated to the repeat. These are numbers that you can play with. Okay. I see that the online is the primary source of marketed leads for most businesses and probably the largest of the three. Okay. Radio, TV, direct mail, billboards, treat these as primarily brand building and committed to them long term. You can see a little bit of ROI from things like direct mail and such, but it's a little bit more difficult to track. I mean, there's actually a pretty good hack that you can do is if you put a QR code and you say scan this code for an additional discount. By the way, thank you, free agency, for that one. I liked what they came up with on that. So I read their Friday newsletter that came out. So anyways, you have this here, online marketing, offline marketing, repeat business. Well, now it calculates out, okay, your budget and where it's going to go. Okay. You can play with these numbers. You can put 60. These are mathed out, by the way. So you actually have to manually do these. Okay. Um, you know what? Why don't we just do this for y'all? I'm going to edit a row here, total. And this is sum. So you now know your math. Okay. You don't have to think about it. I'm just going to put it there for you. Okay. So we're going to go back to 70. We're going to go back to 20. And there you go. You can't have 110%, right? You're going to want to total up to equaling 100%. So again, online, offline, and repeat business. Okay. In this example, I don't believe that this particular organization, if they were here, would be investing into display or streaming. This is online, so SEO, paid acquisition, or lead aggregator. So I'm lumping everything into this one, by the way, just for the argument's sake of you've got your Google, you've got your Meta, you've got your Angie's, you've got your Home Advisor, you've got your Thumbtack. Anything that is an online lead aggregator, I'm lumping under paid acquisition on this. And then I'm going to keep your SEO as a separate line item. So that gives you $261,000 to be able to spend on paid acquisition. And SEO, I've done $4,000 a month as an SEO budget. You can be, I've seen people charge $500 a month for SEO. Don't know how or what they can do. I've seen people charge $10,000 a month for SEO, which I think is too much. So I kind of went shot in the dark in the middle, 4,000. Okay. And putting it there for your guys' consideration. I know some great, I know what our prices are. I know some other very successful people that do really good work in the industry. We're all kind of in and around that, 3 to 4 to 5 to 6,000 number. Some may be a smidge lower around that 2,500, but generally speaking, you're in that $3, $4, $5, $6,000 range for a good company to do your SEO. So you can see this, this percentage, by the way, is as it relates to your total spend. Okay. C31. So it's off of this based off of the total spend for the month, right? So you look at this in January. So your SEO counts for 17% of your online budget in this case, which you're thinking, well, you said it here, 15%. Well, yeah, that's the average, right? It's going to be lower in July and August because you're using paid lead aggregators. It's going to be higher in February and March because you should be maintaining consistency. So if you're to change it to 36,000 and 3,000 per month, you can see the numbers change. Okay. Paid acquisition then goes up because we're basing it off of numbers. So 48,000. I'll put that back there. Okay. Paid acquisition channels, you can see the number that you're going to spend on a month-by-month basis. And of course, display streaming, we're not including anything into that. If you wanted to, you could do like 10% here. It's going to take away from other paid acquisition, not your SEO. Okay. Just as an FYI, if you wanted to look at that, that's how that formula works. Okay. And it's going to give you some numbers there. I have hidden some cells here. You can unhide them if you want, but you don't need to. It's just derived for formula purposes on there. It's nothing really fancy or special on that. So that's what it's going to look like for your monthly budget in your monthly acquisition. So now you're probably thinking, great, Thad, this is awesome information. What am I going to do with $30,511 in the month of July? I don't really know where to put it. That's a great and valid question. Okay. I'm going to give you a ROAS calculation. A return on ad spend is what the calculation is. So again, we're same numbers. I'm just copying these over from before. Average monthly budget. And so we're just looking at averages of what you have here. This total online, you can actually see it matches your total online from here, or pretty close to it. So that just shows you the numbers from this previous sheet that I went over. It's got your total budget allocation. So I've played in some numbers and I've plugged some details and some data in here. Okay. Your numbers might change, might look different. They could be different. Again, I just put some in for example purposes. And I give you a ROAS target, or return on ad spend target. Again, can be wildly different based off of your numbers and your data. So if I were to look at Google and Bing ads and putting $110,000, by the way, the average for this is 5 to 7. Of course, that's going to give me an error. So I put 6. You're generally seeing on average 5 to 7 for Google and Bing in terms of a return. Meta, I put a 7 ROAS in terms of your target and what you're going to get. So 700,000. Again, this can be wildly different. If you're focusing simply on installs, it could generally be a lot higher than that. You could even get a 15 from Meta, right? So again, do your research, find out what the return on ad spend is for you in your area. I'm just giving you safe numbers here. Lead aggregators, this is something like a Yelp or an Angie's. People are like, well, I shouldn't be on Angie's. Why? They sell everybody. Like, why shouldn't you be? Right? Yeah, look at the numbers and the data. Does it allow you to be able to target a good return on ad spend? I know people that are similar to the Google 5 to 7 on just on Yelp. If you're in California, you're not on Yelp, you're silly. Also, reach out to an agency that has a Yelp contact because you get a free extra goodies, by the way, on Purpose Media. Cough. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We do Yelp. So, anyways, you can see the revenue is 400,000. SEO. This is where it gets really, really, really hairy on an SEO perspective. So you can actually see this number 2.8 does not match your 3 million that you're going to get up here. Okay, fair. So you know what? You might actually get a little bit higher of a return on that on your SEO. I know that 19x is on average. These are from the folks over at Searchlight that have been able to pull this out, right? They know that on average, you are getting a 19x return on ad spend from SEO. Okay, again, not my data; that's their data. Okay, our numbers, by the way, hold true to that. So, in case you're wondering, we're generally holding true onto that. I've seen people get like 100x. Okay, see, this is the tricky part. You could actually reduce your numbers and your spend if your SEO is really good. And by the way, if you want to find out what you got from SEO, just look at last year. If you've got good data, or even this year to date, if you're on Service Titan, you can generally find that inside of Service Titan if it's set up the right way. If not, companies like Searchlight have great options in terms of revenue tracking to be able to see what you're actually getting from that as well. So keeping that in mind, looking at that. So this would shoot the moon, obviously, and you can actually back this down to, let's say you're going to do 50,000, you're not going to spend anything there. You're going to keep your lead aggregator source, and maybe you don't, right? Maybe you just go to 0, and now you're like 5.2 million. You're like, what? I don't need to do direct mail either because my SEO is crushing it. I don't need to do this either. What? Because my SEO is crushing it. Okay, I'm just playing with numbers, right? Play with your numbers to know what's going to work for you and your organization and your business and your return on ad spend. Okay. So again, I've given you this as kind of an extra goodie and a bonus on here and on what to spend. And I've plugged in some numbers on this just to have this in here so you can kind of see where we're at. Again, move this around, play with your numbers, see what works best for you and your business. All right. So coming back to this guy over here, okay, let's talk a little bit about wrapping this up. Okay, we're about 38-minute mark, so I'm going to wrap this up here for you guys. So, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You see my email, Thaddeus at onpurposemedia.com. Send me one. You can find us on online at onpurposemedia.com, of course. You can reach out to me on Facebook, facebook.com/Thaddeus.ton. You put a lot of content on there. I shared the YouTube channel earlier. You can do that. But since I've shared value with you guys over the last 30 minutes, I only think it's fair that I get a pitch a little bit about what we do and why it matters for you and why you should pay attention to this, right? So if you want to fast track your marketing, if you're like, hey, this was a great information sheet, my SEO doesn't provide return on ad spend tracking, or maybe you want help planning the entirety of the strategy and mapping this out for your business and looking through the back end data and then holding vendors accountable, we can also have that conversation. There's lots of ways that this can go. But if you want to fast track it, well, we're a good source to be able to fast track your marketing. So you just hire On Purpose Media. And here's what we do and why we do it differently. And because we are home service specialists, right? We work with HVAC, plumbing, electrical, garage doors, roofers as well. Okay? I don't want to exclude them. But we also have an AI first approach. And we've been testing AI, almost for years. We bake it into our website build to make sure that things are designed so that AI understands what you are about and how to be able to rank inside of the AI. Spoiler alert, it's still SEO. There's no fancy acronym. People talk about it all the time and adding acronyms to it. You don't really need an acronym. It's still SEO. Okay. We also have transparent results. You own your accounts. You see real ROI data. We show you the return on ad spend via the Searchlight platform. They're an independent third-party tracker. It's not our tracking. It is their tracking. Right? And they look through and they find the data, they show it, and they hold us accountable for. They also hold the operations accountable too, which is what I like. So it's kind of a two-way street. We also have a phone focus, so we optimize for calls that convert, not just clicks. 3% of your target market at any given time knows they have a problem. They're actively seeking out a solution. They need immediate help. They want to call you. I had a post out on my Facebook earlier today about Google Ads, right? And how a lot of people, they bury the phone number on their website. Why? Like, you think about it, if it's hot outside and their AC is down, they're not going to want to submit a form and wait for a call back. They're going to call to get the first company that can come out. Furnace is out in the middle of winter and they're in the north. Yeah, they're calling because it's cold out. Their house doesn't have that long before their house is going to freeze, right? So keeping that in mind, if their sewer is backing up, yeah, they're sure as shit not filling out a form, right? You want to do drain cleaning? Well, you want to answer that, especially when you're doing those emergency services. So we want to make sure we optimize for that. Proven process is we have our systematic approach that delivers consistent results for our clients month in and month out. And of course, the bottom line, we speak your language, right? We understand your business and know how to build websites that convert for you. And of course, you can book an audit call with us. On this audit call, it's completely up to you, right? You want to see exactly where you're losing customers? You got it, right? Let's have a conversation. You are having troubles with your digital strategy? Done. We'll review it. Okay. You not sure if your traditional media is working? Okay. Well, let's review it. Let's have a conversation. Okay. Want to see if your marketing plan is right? Show it to me. Now use this worksheet. Let's sit down. Let's have a conversation. Let's go over it. These things, by the way, all four of these things are no obligation, no strings. I'm just here to help. I know that sounds cliche, and a lot of people say that, but it's true. So head on over onpurposemedia.com/second. Grab that time on my calendar today, and we can have a chat and do an audit for you and your business at any given time. So again, onpurposemedia.com/second. Let's audit your business for you. So that is the conclusion. Of course, if you have any questions on that worksheet, something's not making sense, of course, that little error that I had, I'll fix that here immediately after. I didn't want to fix that on there. See, sometimes I break my own sheet. So if you mess something up, just do Control Z. If it runs into issues, then just find me, send a message. We'll work on fixing it. Send me the Google Drive link for it. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hopefully you found some value in this itself. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next workshop series. Until next time, cheers. If you like what you heard today, you can hit us up and get a marketing analysis done on your business to know if you're on pace or if you're off pace. Head on to the link that's on your screen, onpurposemedia.ca/marketing-analysis. Book a time with us, and we'll go over and give you all of the details, no obligations, by the way, on whether your marketing is on point or whether it's not. Of course, we also want to see you on our socials. We got our Facebook, we got our Instagram, we got our Threads, we got our TikTok. Give us a follow.